will control the vertical.
Welcome to Anthologic, the TV anthology podcast. I am your host, Mark. Anthologic is a podcast dedicated to exploring the good, the bad, and the odd of horror, science fiction, and the best of mystery suspense anthology shows and series on TV. Join me as we slip through the cracks of reality to approach the extremes of experience, where we can peruse the stories and art of a sinister fairground of strange and wonderful rides. And now we go on to the show that is the focus of this particular episode. Welcome to this episode of Anthologic with your host Mark. Today we are covering an episode of The Night Gallery. This is Season 2, Episode 17. Now this contains two stories and both of them are decent, though I think the second one doesn't resolve that well. But I do kind of like both of them. The first one is called Miracle at Camafeo. Directed by Ralph Senensky. In fact, he directed both segments of this. And this was written by Rod Serling, so pretty solid writing. Now, this first aired on January the 19th, 1972 in US TV. And the first episode, first story, Miracle at Camafeo, stars Harry Godino, Julie Adams and Ray Danton. Now, Julie Adams is probably most famous for the lady in the rather fetching one-piece swimsuit who's carried off by the creature from the Black Lagoon. That's her. That's Julie Adams. She's obviously a fair bit older in this than in that film. I think 14 years or so. But she's still a striking woman and a good actress in this. I have to say, I quite like Harry Godino as like an insurance investigator, and then also Ray Danton as Julie Adams' husband. Now, the scene is set. We are in Mexico. They used a little Mexican area in one of their backlots for this, and yeah, you can kind of tell it's not Mexico, but it's good enough. It's good enough. It's California still, so it's at least sunny. And it starts with a man at a bar, and a lady comes in, a rather striking lady, who is Julie Adams, playing a character called Gay Melchior. He starts to talk to her as if it at first appears he's kind of trying to sort of chat her up a bit, but it turns out not so. He is an insurance investigator who has followed both this lady and her husband from America because the husband was in a car accident, a questionable car accident, received an injury which meant he'd lost the use of his body. He was basically incapacitated and he got a $500,000 payout. Now, the insurance investigator believes he's a scam artist. He's a con man. You know, a small-time con man who got lucky with this. But he also knows he's there because this particular place has a church where miracles happen. People get cured. And he knows that the guy is just going there to act like he's been cured miraculously. We can walk free and still have his $500,000. He tries to talk to Gay Melchior about this. In fact, he says, "Let me tell you a story," and tells them their own story back to them. That's the way this plot develops. So that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. And she will have none of it. She's saying, "How dare you," all this. But after that first scene, which is a 5 or 6 minute scene in the bar, she goes back to the hotel room to her husband's. And she's in the dark, and then suddenly we see the silhouette of a man. He's obviously walking. It is a con. And so on. She's not that happy when she starts talking to her husband about the situation. She finds it quite unpleasant. But he threatens her, basically. He says, "Yeah, when I have my miracle and get up and walk, then I'm going to be playing handball with you. And you'll be going up there to try and get the bruises on your face cured." Not a nice fella. Sort of hard-boiled-y kind of dialogue is that kind of thing. She's not happy, obviously. And then the insurance investigator, who we think is just annoyed because of it's just a scam for money, is actually annoyed because he's using this holy shrine as a way of getting out of, basically pretending he's been cured. Whereas there's a lot of people of faith there actually believing it's a place to be cured, and he's kind of throwing it in their face. And he's more upset about that, I think, than the fact that his insurance company have lost $500,000. He makes his way up to the shrine, and on the way, a woman is going up with her blind son, they're having a bit of trouble getting up the hill, and our insurance, Charlie Rogan, our insurance investigator, played by Harry Gardino, offers to carry the boy, and he does. The boy's wearing dark glasses, and when he takes them off, his eyes are all white, so you can kind of see he's blind. We also, as he's going up, we see Joe Melker being carried on a stretcher up, and Rogan says a few things to him to try and sort of bait him, but he says something like, "Nah, maybe I'll get a little miracle," as Melker's reply, like laughingly. And they all know what's going to happen. Once he gets up there and he gets inside the church, he suddenly sits up, and he can see. In addition, at the same time, the little boy can suddenly see miraculously, so it's kind of a miracle as well. His eyesight's back. He's not got the milky eyes anymore. He could see, but he also tips the priest. This guy who's been, so-called miracle cure, gives the priest the tip, says, thanks Father, and all this. And as he walks out into the sun, he suddenly starts squinting, and he can't see. The affliction of the little boy has been transferred to him. So an irony story, pretty interesting. I liked it. We also see Julie Adams talking to the investigator, who says, maybe there's something in what you say, but I am not going to testify against him. But I am also leaving him. She's leaving him. She's had enough of it. So he's got that going for him too. It's kind of cool. I mean, Julie Adams' character is fairly complex because of this. So that was kind of interesting. I just like the vibe of it. It could have been played a little more reverentially. The extras were extras, the Mexican extra, that it wasn't particularly, you didn't feel the faith, let's put it that way. That it wasn't kind of filmed that way, and it could have been improved a little, but you know what, I quite liked it. I thought this was a reasonably solid one, and it feels an appropriate ending, and I quite liked it. Very sort of short story, short story with a twist in the tail kind of engine. So it was well written because it's Rod Serling, well acted. Direction was okay. Could have been there could have been a bit more emotional impact around it all, but it was good enough. The second story was called The Ghost of Sir Wolf Place. Again, directed by Ralph Sarensky, written by Albin Sapinsley, and not sure you'd know anyone in this apart from Jill Ireland. Jill Ireland's in it. Also, actually, one of the male leads is played by Richard Kiley, who was in, I believe, the very first episode of Night Gallery as the Nazi who's being hunted in South America, who somehow gets in a painting. That guy. In this, he plays an American tourist in Scotland. He's visiting Scotland, and he kind of gets involved in something going on. He meets this rather fashion widow, played by Jill Ireland, who tells her, who invites him in, and basically here's the story of this. Basically, she was married to a man, Mr. Loring, I forgot his first name, their marriage was not good. She was kind of got more and more distant, and he got to, while she wouldn't indulge him in any way, he started to beat her, and he would also sleep with the servants, the maids, and stuff like this. And she tells him a story of how it got particularly bad, and he was taken ill, and she poured his medicine away so he wouldn't get better, and he vowed to visit her 1 year hence. And that anniversary is coming up. Also, the guy also kind of hears it from he's staying at an inn, and he hears that from the landlord, a similar story. And in fact, the widow actually says to him, "Yeah, the housekeeper. There's a housekeeper in this but I can't remember the actress. I couldn't remember the character, but it was quite well played. Who is fairly stern, and she says, "Oh yeah, she's convinced I killed him and all this." And it turns out she kind of did, really. So there's a bit of that. But while the man keeps visiting, he's obviously taken with this lady. I mean, it's Jill Island, so why wouldn't he be? He keeps going back and visiting, but occasionally he sees like an old man who looks a bit grey hanging around, and he keeps encountering him more and more. And it's obviously the ghost of his husband, but not made up too much like a ghost, to be honest. I mean, okay. And this progresses. However, it's kind of a weird ending because she's frightened and wants him to protect her, but also says, I'm not one for loving. I'm never going to love you. There's never going to be anything between us. But even so, Richard Curley wants to stay there. It's almost like implied that her husband's behaviour sort of removed that side of her. And she even says the line something like, "I could never love anyone living." Which has got a weird dark twist towards the end. So he tells her to stay in her room, but then he finds her fiddling with the front door, like unlocking it, and he's a bit confused. He sends her back up, but he goes outside to look. But as he goes inside, he then sees the husband, the ghost, go through the door and shut it behind him and lock him out. So he has to go up. Anyway, a struggle ensues. He somehow banishes the ghost, but falls down the stairs himself. But then he appears to go visit the lady in her bedroom, but he's kind of grey looking, and she invites him in, and she does say, "I told you that I could never love anything living." Like, okay, now he's dead, she's interested, which is a kind of weird, creepy necrophiliac vibe. And he says, "No. In a year I will return," which starts subtle, but she's happy. She smiles when they're fighting. She smiles when this guy comes back from the... She's a weird character. It's a very odd premise that, yeah, I'm not quite sure what's going on, to be honest. Now, this one's based on a short story by Russell Kirk called Selworth Place. It's not entirely convincing as Scotland, any more than anything Scott in California can double as Scotland or England or any of those areas. It just does not look like it. It's way too hot and dry and sort of brown looking. But they did an okay job. They found a location wasn't bad as a replacement for a sort of Scottish manor house. It was okay. So, yeah, not a bad pair. Nothing really outstanding about either of them, but they were okay. I think that's the best you could say about it. Not a bad one. Yeah, so I will wind it up there. But before I go, may I ask, is anybody out there?
I'm not.
We now return control of your television set to you until next week at this same time, when the control voice will take you to